I think we're live, Warner. Tēnā koutou, no mai haere mai ki Rarangatira. Ko ana Jane Edwards, tōku ingoa. He kaimahi o kei te kaunihiro o Tāmaki Makaurau, kei ngā tima, Southern and Western initiatives. My name is Anna Jane Edwards. I'm a part of the Southern and Western initiatives team. And just when you want things to work, you run into technical difficulties. Welcome to the second live Rarangatira kōrero. We're streaming live on He Waka Eke Noa's pages. My name is Anna Jane Edwards, and I have the great pleasure of working across He Waka Eke Noa, the Southern Initiative and the Western Initiative. For those of you who don't know, TSI and TWI, we are the Social and Community Innovation Department of Auckland Council, and our job is to support, facilitate and enable innovative ways to unleash the economic and social potential of South and West Auckland. He Waka Eke Noa, which is based in the Western Initiative, connects buyers and clients like Auckland Council to Māori and Pacifica-owned businesses and promotes supply diversity and development in Aotearoa. And we're not just in Auckland, we're increasingly across the motu. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Warner Cowin, who hails from Ngāti Porou. He's held top roles across Asia, the Asia-Pacific region, working as a national water manager for Downer, serving in the Royal New Zealand Air Force as an engineering officer, and completing a 7-month tour of East Timor during the crisis of 1999 as a UN peacekeeper. With a wealth of international experience behind him and seeing a gap, Warner returned home and set up Hype Project Management in 2013. What initially started as a construction project management company has now become a niche agency helping clients win contracts with their unique approach. Today, Hype works with construction, infrastructure and defence clients, supporting them to build quality services that will benefit our communities. Welcome, Warner. It's really great to have you with us tonight. Warner and Hype PM have been a part of the He Waka Eke Noa whānau pretty much since the start. And it's just been really amazing to have you a part of growing this movement across Aotearoa. Tonight we're actually talking about the New Zealand government New Zealand upgrade program, which is spending $12 million on infrastructure over the next 4 years. To generate work from these projects, you need to be doing pre-work, understanding customer needs, developing relationships, and forming a value proposition. So this Rarangatira differs slightly from last week's in the sense that I'm going to hand this over to Warner. He's going to talk you through the key things that you need to know about prepositioning. This Zoom Live is really for He Waka Eke Noa businesses to understand how they build a relationship with primes and clients, and through those relationships, learn about how they can best win work. So I'm going to hand it over to you. I just have to say, just before this, Warner told me that his daughter had had an accident on a playground on day 1 of level 2. So yeah, I feel for you, Warner, and I hope that she's doing well and that your wife is coping at A&E this evening.
Kia ora, thanks AJ. So kia ora whānau, as AJ said, I'm from Ngāti Porou. I was brought up in the Bay of Plenty, into Tauranga Boys, and then I did good things there, and I ended up in engineering school, and then joined in the Air Force and spent a bit of time in the Air Force in the military, and then ended up in construction after I left the Air Force, and ended up working for Downers for a number of years, and then 7 years ago I started my business, which was construction project management. At the moment, what we do fundamentally, whānau, is essentially we help organisations win government contracts, but we also work with the buyers, the government agencies procuring these services, to help implement social and sustainable outcomes in them. So we work with the likes of kōrero, Kāinga Ora, we've done work with NZTA and Auckland Transport. So we're pretty close to the action around what's going on within those procurement spaces. As AJ said, my daughter is in A&E at the moment. So I have got my phone on because my wife's sitting near and just sort of going, okay, what's going on? So not great protocol with regards to doing a webinar with your phone on, but if she does call, I might have to answer midstream. So yeah, I don't mind. That's, yeah, just you, I'm sure you understand. Hey, what I want to do, if I can, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk a little bit about the government's announcement around the New Zealand Upgrade Program and really talk about, as Māori and Pacifica businesses, how we can engage with that opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about it. So tonight we're going to talk a little about what is the New Zealand Upgrade Program, and then some really practical things about winning work in that space. And I'm going to invite AJ to talk a little bit about that as well, because the Southern Initiative's done some amazing stuff working with our AT, Auckland Transport, Kāinga Ora whānau, in terms of advising them and supporting them about how they can better engage with Māori and Pacifica businesses. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about the opportunities. What is the New Zealand Upgrade Program? So back in February, Grant Robinson announced essentially a $6.8 billion package of 22 key projects across our Aotearoa, primarily with Auckland Transport, New Zealand Transport Agency and Kiwi Rail. At that time, we were pre-COVID. We didn't even understand what COVID was, but it was there to provide some certainty to the construction industry about packages of work and the certainty of pipeline going forward. It had a variety of projects from predominantly what we call horizontal infrastructure projects, for example, roads, rail, and a little bit of water in here as well. Estimated value, an order of about $7 billion, 22 projects across the whole of our country. What's really interesting is the cluster of work predominantly around Tamaki Makaurau and the Waikato in the north, equated to roughly around about 80 to 90% of that spend when you look at it over the whole of the package. Actually, it's a bit less than that, but 80%. What is it kind of made up of, and who are the key players? So if we look at who the key players are, we've got Auckland Transport and a number of projects they're working on, particularly things like Penlink and some of the motorway extensions that they're working with New Zealand Transport Agency, NZTA, who look after our highway network, and Kiwi Rail, who we've been working with a little bit as well. So they've been working on projects such as Pukekohe to Papakura, which is the electrification and double tracking in Wiri Te Key Park. A number of other projects that have been announced today. I think there's additional $300 million for Kiwi Rail. I think, no, it's more than that. Let me just check my phone. I got a text from the head of Kiwi Rail today, got the announcement. 1 second, please, whānau. Here we go. $1.2 billion new for rail today is announced in the budget. So significant investment. That's new ferries, rolling stock, that's upgrades to ferry terminals. And why this is important is that the government is looking to use infrastructure as a way of stimulating the economy and creating job opportunities within the economy through investment in infrastructure. So it's quite a key thing. One thing to note is that even though within the New Zealand Upgrade Program is roughly $7 billion, there's lots of other work going on as well. So within Auckland, for New Zealand Transport Agencies, there's nearly $2 billion of maintenance contracts. So that's looking after our road network, the state highway network. Within Auckland Transport, there's over $1 billion of maintenance contracts looking after the network in Auckland as well. So even though the announcement's been around New Zealand Upgrade Program, the opportunity is far broader than what has been publicised. And I'll talk a little bit about the other opportunities as well. Kāinga Ora, which is the old Housing New Zealand, so they look after our state housing stock. Today they announced, I think there's going to be 4,000 new state houses built and 2,000 renovated. The great thing about Kāinga Ora is there's a real strong Māori outcomes team there, led by a guy called Amos Kamo, who we've been working with, who's phenomenal. So there's a real emphasis of how do we engage with Māori, Māori predominantly, but also Pacifica business as part of that opportunity. New Zealand Defence Force, so those are the defence estates, those are the people who look after all the bases across New Zealand. They've got a program of around $1 billion they're investing across the next 3 or 4 years in the Ministry of Health. So I know a little bit about some of the projects they're working on. For those our whānau that are based down the South Island, it's the southern hemisphere's largest hospital rebuild is happening in Dunedin. So that's in the vicinity of $1.2 billion in Dunedin Hospital. And the Ministry of Education is continually investing in their infrastructure as well. So even though the New Zealand Upgrade Program is predominantly that of a transport related, and that's what people talk about, there are a number of other agencies that are spending money along that. AJ, did you want to add anything to that?
No, you're good.
Awesome. One thing that's also happening is, and we had a terrible crisis last year in which we had a situation in Havelock North in which, unfortunately, a number of people were poisoned in the thousands, in fact, because of poor water quality, and up to 4 people had died associated with this. So this is a bit of a national tragedy, really. The government is earmarking, I'm not too sure the exact figures, but it is in the billions to support investment in water infrastructure in our regional communities. So what they're looking to do is to direct fund capital works within through our councils to support upgrades of our water assets. I think what Havelock North showed to us is that our assets, in particular, particularly our water assets, are substandard across a number of our communities, and it needs a massive capital investment in order to bring up to speed. So not only is this horizontal infrastructure related, there's a significant investment about to happen in water. I think for a number of us, I'm not too sure who's listening to this, but it's important to understand who's in the zoo. So some of us may be able to enjoy a direct relationship with some of the buying agencies, the ones we've talked in today, but actually a number of us will probably have relationships if you're a subcontractor or supplier via a number of the primes. And what I mean by a prime is generally the lead contractor that will have the relationship with the government agencies buying things. What we did is we did a quick review of who's who in the zoo in New Zealand construction, and these are the key players. I think what it does also highlight is actually in Aotearoa, there's actually few New Zealand-owned contractors that are what we consider to be primes or significant. Fulton Hogan, Higgins, which are a part of Fletcher Building, and obviously Fletcher Construction. But you can see some of the usual suspects there, like Downers and John Holland, McConnell Dowell, CPB, Broad Spectrum. A lot of those are either Australian-owned, Chinese-owned, and in one case there's McConnell Dowell, South African-owned. So your avenue, your opportunity to engage with some of these opportunities may not necessarily be direct with the government agency buying the work, but in some cases via the prime or even some of these subcontractors. So that's something to think about. For those who are potentially thinking about Australia, I think this is also important. The Australians have got their own equivalent of the New Zealand Upgrade Program. It's called the Infrastructure Priority List. And this is what has been funded at a federal level. So the way the Australian government works, you have federal spend, have state spend, so that's Queensland, New South Wales, and then you'll have local council spend. It's fair to say, unfortunately, the Australians have beaten us on this and absolutely trumped us. The type of spend they're looking at, and just on that federal spend, is in the vicinity probably peaking at around $22.5 billion per annum, and that's just federal spend. It's actually probably up to 2 to 3 times more than that. Just to give you a comparator in terms of what New Zealand might spend, probably in the vicinity of $2, maybe $4 billion per year. So the Aussies are definitely trumping on us. I think, just thinking a bit more ambitiously, one of the routes that if you are thinking about Australia, and this is important, is that, and for us, we're a good example of this, where we grow our Australian market by our relationship with the businesses we had in New Zealand. So we grew back into Australia through our relationship with John Holland and Downers. So if you have relationships with some of these more established Australasian primes, that does offer the opportunity to grow back depending on what your service offering is into Australia. So just something to think about, at the moment, I think people are probably looking at their feet a little bit with regards to the opportunity, but hey, it does present some awesome opportunities around, thinking broader and bigger if we want to be ambitious and entrepreneurial. If we want to get a bit more information about this, there's a lot of information around what's going on in the market. So the Australian New Zealand Infrastructure Pipeline, ANZIP, actually publishes a number of these opportunities. NZTA in Australia has the infrastructure government. AJ, it might be worth just you chipping in here, talking a little bit about some of the things you're doing proactively with regards to social procurement and some of the social outcome stuff you're working with, for example, with AT and kōrero in particular. Maybe Grace Ed's a good example of that.
So Auckland Council is setting a target spend with Māori and Pasifika businesses and social enterprises. That's a part of a wider strategy to include broader social outcomes. So you'll start to see more things happening around environmental outcomes, employment outcomes, as well as supply diversity stuff. We've also been working with Auckland Transport and most recently on Eastern Busway 2, 3 and 4, which is airport to Botany, on an alliance model that they're going out to RFP on soon. And just looking at some of the things that potentially could go into there around social outcomes, really focused around supply diversity. We've been working in the space for the past 5 years, and some of our colleagues have been working in this space for much longer than that, overseas and here. And we know that employment is one of the harder things to do because it's so complex, and it takes much longer for people to attach to the jobs and the labour market. So working with He Waka Eke Noa businesses through Māori and Pacific-owned businesses and social enterprises is one way in which we're able to amplify the number of employment opportunities for people and ensure that we get quality job opportunities for those people as well.
Yeah, awesome. I think from a very practical perspective, the work that AJ and the team at the Southern Initiative doing in terms of implementing within contracts that go to market around employment of Māori and Pasifika businesses and recruitment of trainees is really key. What we're finding now more than ever is the primes are actually asking the question and actively looking to engage with businesses through the likes of He Waka Eke Noa, or even engage with organisations like the Whangai Trust as part of their value offering to clients. So it's a really key thing. So I want to really talk a little bit about, actually one thing I will mention is that as part of the government's funding for what we call these shovel-ready projects, about 3 weeks ago, each government agency and council was asked to submit an application to the Crown Infrastructure Partners. Crown Infrastructure Partners is the organisation that oversees essentially like a watchdog of approval of funding for a number of these shovel-ready projects. A third of the application was on social outcomes, and in particular, what numbers of jobs would be generated as a result of the work that was going to be funded as part of these New Zealand upgrade programs and what they call shovel-ready. And there's a huge emphasis around employment. There's a huge emphasis around broader outcomes, which includes engagement with Māori and Pasifika businesses and creation of opportunities for particularly disadvantaged youth, long-term unemployed, which actually, if you think about that, and we all know that it impacts our whānau more than any. So, so nearly a third of the application was asking questions associated with that. So just be aware that this is a very topical and important subject, and that actually any government agencies that's delivering a project of this magnitude and scale is asked to report against those outcomes. So it's really key. So now's our time, whānau. Now is our time. It's a really good time to be doing what we're doing. Let's talk about winning work. I joke about this. Why do middle-aged men buy Porsches? I predominantly give this to a corporate crowd. I don't know many Māori or Pacific that own Porsches. If they do, question whether they paid cash for them or they legitimately owe them. Well, it's a discussion for another day. But But what it highlights for, and I usually collar the ladies in the room, and they all go, "Oh, it's midlife crisis," and so forth like that. I think it's a really important thing because when we make decisions based on emotion, and we'll justify them rationally after the fact. So when an organisation's trying to decide whether to engage you or not, one of the key things will be about the emotion they feel towards their particular challenges and problems. And I'll explain to you what that kind of means really practically. But I think the most important thing when we make decisions on emotion, and we rationalise them after. So we're having a slight midlife crisis. If we could afford to, we buy a Porsche. And then we justify it on the basis that it goes from 0 to 100 a certain amount of time, or it's a great piece of engineering. How does that kind of work practically? So in our brain, we have two systems. We have an inner part of the brain that's we call the amygdala, and it's very much on the basis of when we evolved out of Neanderthals. And it would basically, if we think about it, we are naturally geared up to sense things that will cause us harm or create fear. So that's a really important part about the decision-making process we go through. So if we feel a natural sense of anxiety about a situation, then we will naturally filter out and prioritise it accordingly. What that means fundamentally, and I'll talk a little bit about it, is that up to 50% of managerial decisions are based on what we call gut decisions, based on previous experiences. So what that means when someone's making a buying decision, and particularly for businesses like ourselves, they will carry a certain level of bias into a decision-making process. Okay, so it's quite important for us. So we need to understand what are the things that keep our clients awake. And I'm not going to get a discussion around, the fact around what the reputation could be for Māori or Pacifica businesses, but what we want to understand is what are the big issues that we have and how we can overcome them. And I'll explain how that works kind of practically. When we put a capability statement together for a client or a proposal, normally what we'll do is we'll present a number of very objective, rational things. We'll talk a little bit about the products and services you offer, the systems and procedures. We'll talk about the relevant experience of the projects we've worked on in the past, track record, how we perform. We'll talk about our team. That's all very objective, very rational. That's the equivalent of the Porsche engineering discussion. But actually what sits below that is a whole lot of emotional decision making. So for example, you're not a corporate entity. You've never done business with a government agency before. You don't have ISO no accreditation. We do a lot of work with exporters across to Australia. You're from New Zealand, you're a small business. So what happens is that a lot of those emotional drivers do drive the decision making for our customers around whether they're going to engage you or not. Really, really important to understand that. And it's really important, and it's okay for us to go and ask those questions of our customers that, like, what really keeps you awake at night? Why wouldn't you engage us necessarily? And it's about understanding what are those things, but what we call below the waterline that will drive the decision making for our clients. If I give you a really good example, we did a piece of research with one of our customers who manufactures patrol vessels. A small business in New Zealand wanted to sell patrol vessels to a police force in Australia. Went across there, and the first question we asked is, what's your biggest challenge? And the police officer in charge said, police are whingers. Okay, keep going. He says, every time we introduce a new piece of equipment, they complain. Okay, keep going. Yeah, they complain. They reject the equipment. They often, they damage it. They reject it. And so we went back to our business we're working on and say, hey, this is the big problem our clients got. It's a real below the waterline thing. What can we do to resolve it? And we sat and we thought about it. We make vessels, we make boats. How can we resolve this? But then one of our guys said, one of the things we could do is we could integrate the police officers as part of our design process. We could get them involved in developing a mock-up, a 3D model, put virtual reality goggles on them. And as we build the vessel, we can get them involved in signing off certain aspects of the vessel along the way to a point when we do our operational testing, which we normally do internally, we can get the police involved. So one of the great things about thinking like this is that something you might do as a business as usual or part of your normal process might be a really integral part of adding value to your customers, because that's what this is all about. And the other thing I think is really important when we start to look at why an organisation would engage you, and we did some research on this, is all about how do we build those relationships. And the best way to build those relationships is understanding those issues. So we did some research. We've been doing how to help organisations win big tenders for a long time, 7 years now. And we just trawled through 7 years of data, and I was surprised in this, but 100% of all the tenders that we did for customers and they were successful, they all pre-positioned well. What we mean by pre-positioning is they spent time with the customer before the opportunity came to market, and they understood the below the waterline issues well and truly before the opportunity came. And 81% of all our lost tenders, the client had done no project-specific pre-positioning whatsoever. So what I'm saying, whānau, is this: more important than anything, the relationships we build with our clients or potential customers is more important than potentially putting in proposals where we've had no engagement whatsoever. So that's really, really key. What we're talking about here is fundamentally building what we call a trusted advisor relationship. So by understanding our clients' key issues, in the case where we talk about the police force, we were able to get to a point where our client felt that they at least knew who we were. So that's really, really important in terms of how we can garnish trust and support for our services as we move forward, particularly for these use and upgrade programs. So that might be a discussion you're having with, for example, a government agency in the service you offer, or it could be with one of the primes in terms of being a subcontractor. It's having those discussions around, okay, what are the below the waterline issues? What are the things that really keep you awake at night? And what we find is, if you think about your relation, I mean, you're all in business because you've been successful. You'll all have examples of good relationships with your customers, where people keep coming back to you again. In a lot of cases, when you have good relationships, trusted advisor relationships with your customers, price becomes less of a determining factor in winning the work. So you'll be able to negotiate with directly or have more control. Let's talk about what we call practical pre-positioning. So how do we go to a point where we're looking at this opportunity and go, actually, I really want to go and work for Fulton Hogan on this opportunity. I want to provide them some whatever, be a subcontract to them, or I really want to go and do some engineering advice for Kāinga Order on this project. I think the important thing around winning work is it's not all about tender. And this extends predominantly with government work. You can actually, there's huge amounts of flexibility to get direct order or negotiated work. So even for us as a small Māori-owned business, we do a lot of work with government agencies, and we very rarely tender stuff. We use our relationships with our agencies in order to, in a lot of cases, get direct order and negotiate work. We work really hard on that. And we demonstrate value through the proposition we put together. We also take the opportunity to do what's called unsolicited proposals, and always happy to have a chat with anyone offline. But essentially, under New Zealand government rules of sourcing, there's nothing stopping you from putting a proposal forward to a government agency in order to offer your services on the basis of particular problems. There's a few rules around that. The other thing is all of government panels and frameworks. We'll talk a little bit about that, but at the moment, the construction consultancy service contract framework is being launched, and it's an open framework. You can apply for that anytime. And then government agencies often have a framework set up for this case here, FM services contracts for all the government property group. So there's ways and means to engaging with government agencies. For those who are used to the private sector, it's about how you manage that relationship, very similar to the private sector, and how you put in proposals. The most important thing, let's just talk about how we do this kind of practically. What are the things we can do? I'll send AJ a copy of these slides, and she can, if you email her or you email me at the end of the session, I'll send you these slides. So here's the New Zealand upgrade program. This is what we call a pipeline. So essentially, this is when the opportunity is going to come to market. And when the opportunities are going to hit. I think what this does is it provides you, particularly if you're new to this, a bit of a roadmap of what things to focus on first. So, for example, if you're interested in doing work in Penlink, which is the new motorway being built across the Whangaparoa, the northern part of Auckland here, if you think you've got particular expertise, you can offer the potential contractors for Penlink then you know that the construction contract's going to come out in Q4 of 2021, I think that's when it's come out. So it allows you an opportunity then to go and engage with those respective primes. So you know it's going to be Down, it's going to be John Holland, it's going to be Fitchers. So what it does is give you a way of prioritising how and who you're going to engage with. So let's just take a practical example, and this is not on Aotearoa, but down in Melling and Interchange, which is in Wellington, and we'll talk a little bit about what this means practically. This is a New Zealand Transport Agency job, $258 million, and here's a bit of a detail on the job. Okay, what's really interesting about this, we know that from the pipeline and from the information that's been provided by government, that the construction contract's going to come out in Q4. So let's say we were an entity that wanted to do work either directly for NZTA, or we thought, wow, we might want to work with one of the prime contractors. We want to pre-position. So at the moment, we have effectively roughly a year and a half of time to go ahead and do some pre-positioning. This is what we talk about, creating those positive biases, understanding what's below the waterline, getting to a point where we can we build a trusted advisor relationship well and truly before the opportunity comes to market. The pre-positioning window is broken into two sections. One is around discovery. So that's how we might go and ask questions of our clients, and one is around pitching and explain what the difference is. So discovery is important. So that allows us the opportunity to go and talk to, let's say we talk to Downers, we go, hey, we're a small business, we do this. We're really interested in being part of this opportunity at Melling. What are the big challenges or things that you've got going on? We don't need to sell, we just have to go and build some level of understanding. We give them a good listening to. Taringa whakarongo, we're listening, okay, what are the big issues? And then we go away and we start to go, okay, what is the value we can have? We understand what the issues are. What are the solutions? So if we remember that boat building one, that police of Wingers, if we go back to our team and go, what are the solutions we can wrap around? And we can understand and start to define value to that particular prime contractor. And then we can go through a stage of actually pitching to that contractor, showing them what value we can add. And I'll show you how that kind of works practically. One thing to do is we can start to put together what we call account plans. And we're a small business. We are only 15 people. Yet we really put time and effort into trying to create relationships with people at senior levels. And it's not a very good, I think as Māori in Pacific, I speak from my own experience here, we don't necessarily put ourselves forward and push to go and have relationships at a senior level. But I think if we want to be successful, the one thing we have to do and challenge ourselves is to try and have discussions with people within senior levels within these organisations. And so what we aim to do as a small business, not different from any of you listening now, is for 4 or 5 of our key customers to make sure that we have a relationship with the CEO or the person below that. So for example, we've got a really great relationship with some of the folks at kōrero at a very senior level, and they really respect our input and our value that we add with them. They're not afraid or do they detract from the fact that we are a small Māori-owned business. They value our input. So don't be afraid to want or desire to have a relationship with people within senior levels within these organisations. I think you'll find and you'll be surprised that they'll be interested in talking to you. So one of the things we advocate quite strongly is that you start to map out your own organisation, even if it's small, even if it's just a small whānau business of maybe 5 or 6 of you, that to try and link yourself up for how are the big decision makers within that organisation. You may not necessarily have a relationship with the CEO of, for example, NZTA or kōrero, but there's no reason why you shouldn't have a relationship with someone that reports directly to them or that are below them. So if I give you an example, in Kāinga Ora, the gentleman by Te Ariki, who's the head of Māori Outcomes. So he's the sort of guy that we can connect with, we can understand, who understands us as well. And if he can't have a relationship with us, he'll connect with someone in his team. So I think this is really important. This is something that we can think about if we want to build great relationships with our customers, and we shouldn't be afraid of doing it. Always happy to help with anyone around this. I think one of the things around pitching, particularly if we're in the physical works game, is that we're in an outsourced success business. I don't know if Wiremu Gray's listening on this, but he's a good example of this. Wiremu Wiremu and I've been chatting for a little while now, but he's the face of the team. And when people look at Wiremu Gray, they look at him and they go, actually, I trust Wiremu to deliver that job for me. So one of the most important value propositions you have is you as the leaders of your businesses. Client organisations want to look the person in the eye that's going to deliver the service that you're offering and know that they can have faith and confidence in your ability to deliver. So the most important value proposition that you have as an organisation is you as the leaders. And people are investing in you to deliver for them, so that's really important. We'll talk about pitch packs a little bit, but one of the other things as well is about site visits. If you can create an opportunity for your clients to come and see what you're doing on site, that's so important. Or meeting your customers. If you're doing work, for example, at Auckland Council, some of the parks work, I know some of the guys are doing that. There's nothing better than going out on site, observing your teams working, and then getting to meet some of your customers. What that does is it absolutely de-risks the decision around whether to engage you or not, so that's really important. A really simple thing around how to build a value proposition, I'm going to skip over this quite quickly, but if we start to understand what is the things below the waterline, in particular, like what are the big issues for our customers, so if we go back to that boat building one in which, police are whingers, then, what are the solutions we can wrap around it? So again, it's about being really inquisitive when we engage with our customers to understand things that are not necessarily objective or functional in terms of things we deliver. Here's some samples of pitchbacks. And again, one of the ways you can articulate your business and the value you add is through pitchbacks or capability statements. What I think we should do is trying to bring your business to life is how do we represent our business? And the way we do this is trying to capture the information there in a way that you can speak to, you can bring it to life. Because this is about storytelling, and as Māori and Pacifica people, we're really good storytellers. So we're good at telling a story. So I think what we're trying to do is when we talk about a pitch pack, what we're essentially doing is trying to tell a story about, again, what are the issues for our clients and what are the solutions we offer for them. I think we always start off with our customers' issues. I'm going to flip through this pretty quick, AJ. I will leave that. So really real practical stuff. Like people think that you've got to have endless coffees and go to the rugby in order to win all this work, and that's the way we do things. But that was kind of like 1980s, 1990. That's what my dad did. Don't do that anymore. Clients are busy, and they want to know that you can add value really quickly. So if we look at, say, for example, our example at Melling, if we look at some really practical stuff we can do. For example, let's do that initial client meeting. Let's go and have a chat to them and go, okay, what are the big issues you've got? Okay, so we get a meeting with them. We talk to Brett, we talk to Nicole, we express their concerns and issues, we give them a good listening to. And then we go away and we formulate our thinking. So one of the really important things is we don't necessarily have to go there and have all the answers. It is really okay for us to go and give our clients a good listening to. What's really important if we take some of our clients' time, we must value that. By valuing that, we must ensure that we follow up quickly with a response. That we say, okay, here's what I heard, here are your big issues, and here's some solutions that we can offer. Here's things that we can help you with. And that might mean something you can do as a provider, or it might mean connecting them with some other person within your wider network. Putting a pitch pack together, meet your team, meet your customers. So we've worked with organisations in which they've won like $100, $200 million contracts in which their pre-positioning strategy was about 4 tactical engagements with a client leading into that opportunity. What's really interesting when you start engaging with organisations in a real strategic way is that all of a sudden it creates opportunities for other things as well. So if you're doing pre-positioning with the prime contractor for Melling, and all of a sudden they go, wow, these guys are pretty awesome. Hey, we've got other jobs going on. There's other things happening. So by pre-positioning for one opportunity, it creates a multitude of other opportunities right across your business. And we'll talk a little bit about negotiated works. Government agencies are massively flexible around that, more so than ever. Unsolicited proposals, so you see something, you might put something in. So the government rules of sourcing allow you to do that. Helps you market shape the next opportunity. By that I mean, how about we jump on this opportunity here? So there's lots of benefits for what we call pre-positioning, not for the opportunity you're chasing, but for other things that are going on as well. Let's just talk really, really simply put. This is one of the couple of last slides I've got is around real practical things you can do in your business to try and pre-position. One thing I would really advocate strongly for is if you are a business owner, and it's really tough, I know, because we get busy doing the mahi and we're all trying to deliver for the customer, but it's around making sure there's a couple of sacrosanct things, really important things. One is committing an hour a week minimum to looking after sales and looking after how you're managing your key accounts. By that, I mean looking after your key customers. And you're going to be reviewing your pipeline. You might be looking at customer feedback, what proposals we're going to get in the week, what forecasts you're doing, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means really practically soon. For you guys that are business owners and you've got whānau out there doing the work for you, one of the most important things you can do is create time in your diary to actually go out there and spend time with your customers and spend time engaging with new customers. I call that hustle time. So for me, I have Wednesday afternoons dedicated just to engage with customers. That time in my diary is sacrosanct. No one and everyone knows my business. They don't talk to me on Wednesday afternoons. They can't book on Wednesday afternoons because that's when I speak to the customers all the time. And I think that's really important because if you own your own business, you kind of can get stuck in a way in which you get so super consumed with stuff. Talk about strategic meetings. We'll be trying to engage with our clients strategically. I'd advocate for, as a minimum, we're wanting to see them at least 2 times per year. Okay. Look a little bit around practical pipeline management. We use a piece of software. It's called Pipedrive. What that is just a whole series of opportunities. So Melling could be one of those opportunities there. Penlink could be one, or another project. But what I would be advocating for you guys to do is to seriously look to take some time to set yourself up in a CRM system or customer relationship management system. What that does is it puts a whole lot of structure into the way you manage opportunity through your business, and it's a good way to create some levels of discipline. What's really interesting with this is it's pretty cheap. I think it's about $20 per user per month. It's not expensive at all. So, price is not an issue. The thing is, for all of this, it's all a bit of, software and a bit of like count plans. But again, what you need to do is ensure that we go back and having that weekly sales meeting, that you're instilling that discipline with your business. It's a real important discipline. What you can do is once you start getting your pipeline really structured, start to look at how do you understand what is your success rate, and you can start to actually do forecasting on this. You can actually start to forecast your future workload on it. So it's a really important thing. What's your success rate? What's your win rate? And you can start to then get some data to help you make some really good strategic decisions around where you grow your business. It's a little bit about bid, no bid. Essentially, it costs a heck load of money to bid stuff. I would advocate if anyone's tendering, just give us a call, we'll talk you through this. But essentially what I would say is that if you're in a situation where you're tendering lots without qualifying the opportunity, then stop doing it because you're not winning. You're not going to win. As we've shared that 100% of all the opportunities that if we're successful, where you pre-position. So that's probably the golden rule there. Look, really practical account and sales management is about a discipline. And making sure we have a regular cycle of customer engagement, taking an opportunity to put in unsolicited proposals, negotiated works, or direct award, and I think also as we looked at the police example, issues are often not technical. If you work for government agencies, they're naturally conservative, bureaucratic type organisations that it's easy to bamboozle them with technicality, but actually some of their real issues could be around poor public relations. It could be around not following process. It could be around getting in trouble with their boss. A whole lot of multitude of issues that are never technical. That's it, AJ.
Awesome, thanks, Warner. We've had heaps of questions, actually.
Have you? Kia ora.
Yeah. Lots of people. What?
Good news, whānau. Here it is. X-ray looks okay. Doc said it's hard to know with kids, but she seems fine. Leaving hospital now.
Yay! That's awesome. Shall we kick into these questions, eh?
Yeah.
One of them you've already answered. Elaborate a little bit on it. What practical things should we do to build relationships with clients and buyers? So I heard you say book some time and start regularly connecting with, and try and book 2 times a year to connect. And then the other thing I heard, make sure that you are connecting at the right level. So try and get build relationships with people as high up in the organization as you can get. Can you just explain how you've managed to connect with those people? Like, what is the best way that you've done
just,
that?
I think really practically, actually, just let our dog in 1 second. You know, she's barking.
Bro, whānau?
Sorry, whānau.
I'm just reading that.
I think 2 things. One thing that's really important, I think, when we're connecting with our customers is to take time to really understand what their issues are. So we should be taking the time to ask a question, and if you feel comfortable enough to go, hey, what really keeps you awake at night? So we've been working really hard to implement social and sustainable outcomes in contracts, as AJ and the Southern Initiative whānau have. And the biggest challenge with implementing social and sustainable outcomes is actually the cultural change you need to achieve within an organisation. So that's the biggest challenge, you know. But if we haven't asked that, then that's always a real, we're not really addressing the key issues with the client. So the other thing I think is really important is not being afraid to want to have a relationship with the CEO. I think now more so than ever, it's never been a greater opportunity for Māori and Pacifica businesses to engage at a high level. For example, if I look at, you know, like Downer, and I look at some of the leadership in there, like guys like Craig West, who I know personally. You know, he's a great advocate for Māori business. He's the head of transport for Downer, and he's the sort of guy that would be keen to talk to you. But there's lots of guys all through the spectrum of our industry that are keen to talk. So I think we've got to get over our natural shyness as Māori and Pacifica to have a little bit of courage to go, okay, I might give Craig West a call, to head of transport at Downer, and arrange a hui and a bit of a catch up, and you know, and introduce myself. Because I think we're pushing on an open door more so than we ever have in terms of being able to do business with these corporate entities and also government agencies. So it's about, more importantly, having the confidence to want to do it.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing as well is that a lot of these organisations are starting to take social outcomes seriously and resource that. So in Kaingaora, you have a building social outcomes team, and you have a team that's directly sitting within the procurement team that are all really focused on social outcomes. That leads me into my
actually, AJ, just really quickly, I mean, He Waka Eke Noa is a great advocate for creating opportunity for you within these organisations. So, you know, there's a number of entities, both government and contractors, that have signed up to He Waka Eke Noa. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but, you know, AJ's team can help identify potential people you might want to have a kōrero with. So, you know, don't be afraid to talk to our Southern Initiative team around how they might be able to identify people within these organisations. And, you know, that, as AJ said, particularly within the corporates, they're forming teams around how to best to engage with Māori and Pacifica businesses. So, yeah, it's never been a better time. It's awesome.
I have a question about how you navigate all of the different tendering platforms, Bid, Contender, Get, Ariba. What are the best ones, and how do you keep up to date so you know when tenders come up?
Yeah. I look, generally, if I think if anything you take away from my presentation is that if the first time you see an opportunity, it's on Gets or one of those tendering platforms, then you've missed the opportunity. Your ability to win something that you've seen on those platforms is well and truly gone when you've actually seen it. There's organisations that have already pre-positioned for those opportunities, so they don't come. They're not random necessarily. The best way to create opportunity for you as a business is to be proactive and engaging with these organisations well and truly before those opportunities come to market, or create the opportunity that does come to market. So I actually only subscribe to Gets. Just out of curiosity. I know, particularly from major infrastructure perspective, what's coming to market. So I'm generally over what's happening. So if something comes to market via Gets and I haven't seen it and haven't responded to it, I don't bid it.
I think the other thing with the stuff that we're working on, like Grays Ave with Kaingaora, is while that was in the pipeline for a really long time, the window in which we got was very small to enable Māori and Pacifica businesses to be a part of. Yeah. And they're hugely committed to social outcomes, and that was the first project that they ever set targets in for spend with Māori and Pacifica and social enterprises. But it does talk to the ability for a business to be ready for the opportunity when it comes up, especially right now when people are starting to just dip their toes into building social outcome clauses into their RFPs. So one of the other things that I think we would say is if you are seeing a bid on Gets, it's looking at who the people are that are managing that bid, and then working through the organisation to see other opportunities.
Well, I think it's fair to say, AJ, that you can pretty much assured, particularly for Kaingaora, NZTA, Auckland Transport, the influence certain people, and particularly you guys, have had over that those opportunities that will come to market will have some form of Māori or Pacifica outcomes embedded in them. So yeah, it's almost a given, really. Yeah,
and that's it. I guess that's the exciting bit of this, hey? And it's supporting our businesses to be successful and delivering on those works like we know they can.
Yeah.
There was another one. How do we engage with organisations like Kaingaora who already have existing relationships? I'm just going to check and make sure I've got this right. What levers do we use to engage? So I'm just going back to the question that I asked earlier. How are you actually meeting these people? Like, what are the best ways to connect with them besides LinkedIn and cold calling?
Yeah, look, I think the best thing you can ever do is have leverage off an existing trusted relationship you may have. I think once you start working with the likes of kōrero and Kaingaora, what you'll realise really, really quickly is how small the market is and how small the decisions makers are and how connected they are. So if I give good examples of how we've grown our network, it's generally through relationships we've had over the course of our business. And I'm not going to candy coat it. Sometimes these relationships take time to build. So we've had a very proactive relationship with kōrero for a number of years, and the fact that we've been trying to pitch and ask them for business for a long time. It took nearly 2 years for us to get in the door. But we've been really thankful for them as a customer, so we really appreciate it. They're a great customer. So it's been consistent. I know, for example, AJ and Tanya, He Waka Eke Noa, have made introductions for us for social sustainable outcomes, and again, a real plug for Southern Initiative. They have the opportunity to create opportunities for us if you can add value. The other thing I don't think you should be afraid around is sussing out who particularly might be the Māori or Pacifica lead within his organisation. So if I take Kaingaora example, they've got a fantastic head of Māori outcomes there, Turiki, but also there's a lady called George Ellis, who's there around driving social and sustainable outcomes. So a lot of these government agencies have people that are there to work proactively to embed social and sustainable outcomes into contracts, but also to engage with you. It might be something we should do, AJ. We should put a list maybe together of people within these organisations that our whānau can reach out to, maybe, like George is a good example,
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been working on in the background is a new website for He Waka Eke Noa, which will have a member login for both buyers, clients and suppliers. So any registered Māori and Pacifica business with He Waka Eke Noa will be able to go on there, find the details for George Ellis from Kāinga Ora, or Alice Bray from NZTA, or someone from the PGF.
So Thomas Perenara at PGF, Alice at New Zealand Transport Agency. I'm not too sure who their equivalent is at kōrero. But Auckland Transport, guys like Dave Calhoun, who's head of procurement, who's very pro-Māori, very pro-Pacifica. So maybe we should create that and create opportunities for our whānau to meet these people.
Great. So that is coming up, a new website where you'll be able to see all of the other businesses and be able to connect directly with the buyers and clients that are members of He Waka Eke Noa, to which there are a number now. We have over 25 buyers and clients that we're working with in some sort of way, which is really exciting. We're starting to see a huge interest from buyers and looking at the register and working with us to develop up their social outcomes. But I just want to thank you, Warner, for your time.
No problem.
For being an incredible supporter of He Waka Eke Noa since the start, and for continuing to support a number of the businesses in your own time. It's a testament to who you are as a person, and the belief that you have in Māori and Pacific businesses and entrepreneurship.
I think it's really important. I think we bring a different perspective, and I think, now is particularly with this government, and I maybe, look at Nanaia Mahuta in terms of some of who take up around, particularly around Māori outcomes. But if we get Māori outcomes right, we look after our Pacifica brothers and sisters as well. We're all same people, we're connected. Kia ora.
Kia ora. So that's us for tonight, whānau. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Thursday. Tanya will be talking to Te Ano Tuiono about all sorts of awesome stuff. Have a great night.
Ka pai. We have a wine now.